everybody for being here today. We have a room full, which is nice. As we talked about last week sometime, we are going to, this evening, go through water, electric, sewer, solid waste, and recycling. Very informally, if I may suggest as much. The group can jump in, have a conversation, things that we've talked about. Please don't be afraid. Jump in anytime, okay? Commission table here has been presented with documents for each fund. Pink sheet on the top is your revenue. Anything underneath is your expenditures. I do have a few extra copies here I made for media. I wasn't expecting so many people to want them. I think I do have an extra one here that could be passed around and shared. All right, starting with water revenue. On your pink sheet of your water revenue, we've got a section of operating revenues. We're going to budget about $1.8 million in water revenue this year. That is no increase to the base. It is a $1 increase to the meter charge, so your extra meter charges will go from $12.50 to $13.50. And it is a unit charge increase of 0.160. So our unit fees will go from 2.374 to 2.534. Okay, that is expected to generate about another $113,000 in revenue. Right there.
The extra meter charge is like rental properties or
Correct.
multiple family dwellings?
Multiple dwellings, right.
We're looking at it, the average household bill will go up like $1.03 a month, I think. If you use about 5,000 gallons, which should be a little over 700 cubic feet, if I recall right.
Correct.
That's how we
What
bill
we
our
decided.
water. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, under other financing sources, you're going to see this year a transfer into the water fund. This has to do with several of our conversations about the way we're going to adjust our transfers this year and not pay for any of our IIP projects out of Fund 213. They will all be paid for out of their respective enterprise funds. So when your utilities, as we go through these utilities this year, instead of the transfers out, like we used to do, transfers out of the utilities up into the second penny, we're going to do them backwards. We collect the money in the second penny and we disperse them out into the enterprise funds. So you are seeing a transfer in of your water fund about $473,000. That is going to entail the IIP projects of utility work for Center Street Bridges, the Center Street project, the water pieces of those two projects. Any questions there? The transfers, okay? Bottom section there is your reserves applied. We are anticipating using $15,000 of the tower inspection reserve for a tower diving study that they want to have done. So water, total water revenue is going to be about $2.3 million. Questions before we move to expense? Okay. First expenditure line item that we will talk about is the water source of supply. That is a significant increase in expense as opposed to last year. This is because of the new Lewis and Clark water that we're taking on through the Big Sioux connection, correct, Corbin?
Excellent work.
Okay, thank you. 2 invoices per month. We have an invoice to Big Sioux Water, and then we also have an invoice to Lewis and Clark. We're estimating that to be about $90,000 expense next year. Under your water purification, almost way down to the bottom there, just want to point out expenditure for chemicals. We decreased that this year. In the past, we've budgeted about $90,000. We're moving that down to about $75,000 due in part to the water that we're taking on from the new water that we're taking on. New water, less treatment is the hope, correct?
But we don't have to treat the water we're buying either, so.
Right. Okay? We will keep an eye on that because that's a pretty big decrease there. As far as a capital improvement project under water purification, recoat clarifiers, $200,000 to recoat 2 clarifiers. As we go through these improvement line items, gang, you have a white sheet here on this paper. It says capital improvements on it. This is going to lead a detail of our capital improvement projects for the funds that we're talking about tonight. Water distribution. Under professional services, we're budgeting an extra $15,000 for the tower diving inspection. Somebody can help me out with that if they like to, but we are going to use reserve money for that. So we increased that line item by $15,000. It will be offset by the the tower inspection reserves that are going to be put towards that project. Under tools and tool repair, a purchase of a leak detector for $7,000 and a purchase of a locator for $8,000. Under supplies and materials, valves and meters, another $86,000 worth of water meter change-outs that we'll budget for. Improvement line item, way at the bottom, $623,726. Those, again, are the IIP projects that we've got planned. So again, for your water fund, the water pieces of those projects, the utility work for the Center Street Bridge is $15,000 of that amount. Again, this is on this sheet. Okay? They all say IIP. So you'll see IIP utility work, $15,000. IIP Center Street project, $608,000. To get that $623,700. Final item on that page there is half of a pickup. When we purchase new pickups for the water sewer funds, half gets water, half gets charged to sewer. So half of the pickup purchase is in that line item there. Turning the page to the water admin, you will see our debt service way towards the bottom, line item 4411 and 4421. That is our drinking water revenue bonds that we have to pay on through year 2028. Principal amount of $213,000 and interest of about $72,000. Capital outlay accumulation for the water fund. Additional monies put into already established designated reserves for an additional $102,000 put away into designated reserves for total water expenditures of $2.3 million. If you'll now pull this cash sheet here, this legal sheet that I have. Far 2 columns, 2018 budgeted revenue, 2018 budgeted expense. We talked about the budgeted revenue and the water fund is going to be $2,328,000. The budgeted expense, $2,330,000 for a difference of $2,300. And I'm not keeping up very good on my display here. Sorry, I'm sorry, but I'm not keeping up.
Good work. We had a little bit bigger deficit there, but we felt we had a comfortable amount of unallocated cash in the checkbook, if you will. So the little budget deficit we have isn't an issue.
Agreed, for only $2,300.
How many meters did we add? 60 something? That was part of our.
57, I want to say 57.
It felt like
water
60
meters.
something, yeah. Which is nice.
Any questions on the water fund? Any questions on the $2,300 budget deficit? Expense over revenue.
Is that all on water you're going to discuss? I missed the net profit in our water sales.
Net profit, we are budgeting for $1.8 million in water revenue.
What? Okay, and your water expenditures are what? You're showing a deficit then between revenue and expenditures, is that correct?
$2,300 is all, yep.
Are we paying for wheeling charge to bring the water from Big Sioux through the rural system into ours? Are we paying a fee to have them transport part of our water?
We are, correct.
Well, no, we
No.
pay a little electric charge for that pump station.
Pardon?
We don't pay a wheeling fee, actually. We pay a little bit of the electrical expense, or essentially they have a booster pump a couple miles north of the Minnehaha County line, and we're paying a portion of the electric bill there. Essentially, we're paying for the electricity for the water to come to
All
us.
right. What is the quality of water we're getting from the Big Sioux? Or Lewis
It's
and
better, well, based on what?
Clark?
Parameter?
Is the water quality we getting, is it comparable, or is it superior to, or is it lesser quality than our well water?
I'd say it's way softer, Rick. I don't mean to offend your water you're putting
It's
out.
superior to the water we have. It's superior to the water we have.
So we're sacrificing in making the blend, right?
No, we're
No.
getting better
We're
water.
sacrificing quality.
No, we're not. We're getting better quality because of the blend.
We're getting better water.
We're getting better
We're
quality.
getting better quality, that's right. We're getting better quality water from Lewis and Clark.
Yes.
Okay, so we're sacrificing some of our quality by blending and getting it here, aren't we?
No,
We
if
couldn't
did
supply the whole
If
town.
we did not have Lewis and Clark, our quality would be here. But because we're adding Lewis and Clark water, our quality is up here. But if you're asking if we had 100% Lewis and Clark, would it be better quality? Yes.
How
But-
far are we away from that?
We're a long ways away from that because we have a plant, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong. In the wintertime, and that we use over 600,000 gallons a day, and in the summertime we'll use well over 1.2 million gallons a day. But if we shut our plant down, in that, then we run into an issue of maybe not getting enough water into Madison, and by running it at a 30-70 blend, we've got the plant tweaked down about as low as we can to maintain the highest quality possible.
Has the council done anything in recent years to talk with our congressional
Yes.
delegation?
I've been to Washington, D.C. along with Troy Larson, Chad Heavey out of Sioux Falls, and from Laverne, and we
Brad?
spoke on to our congressional ones, but we also spoke to the other congressional ones as well.
Well, didn't Laverne get water just a couple of years ago?
Yes, very much.
Why can't we?
Not enough federal funding coming in, and the way Lewis and Clark was set up, Madison would be the last one to receive it, which could be as far out as 2040 or 2050.
But we had a promise of water.
We still have a promise of water, but we are now getting the water because we got a zero interest loan from the omnibus water bill, in that Minnehaha got a loan and some grant. Big Sioux, who was not a member, and that got a loan and a grant to upsize some of their lines, and then Lewis and Clark got a loan to bring in the 5 miles into Madison. So that's why and how we are getting the water now.
Are the wells in Lewis and Clark, are they pumping to capacity?
No. They're not pumping to capacity because there's still towns that have not been connected yet in Iowa and in Minnesota.
there's no way we can bond or anything or convince the district to bond to get water. I've been here just a short period of time, only
Sure.
22 years, but that's a promise that was way out there, and our water almost defies definition.
What I can tell you is that I worked hard on this, and instead of waiting till 2040 or 2050 for the line to come directly to Madison, we're receiving water from Lewis and Clark through Big Sioux and into Madison, and we have improved the quality of our water while still being able to use our best wells to provide the best quality water possible at this point for the citizens of Madison.
What you're saying, there is nothing we can do to improve our water without a federal intervention, is that right?
Without the city of Madison bonding and paying for it, I think that's where we are.
Well, I've been here 22 years, and I think I could have paid a big chunk on bonding and interest when you consider what our water rates have done in these 22 years. Our water doesn't serve the people very well.
Oh, I disagree.
Well,
If you go to towns around us and that our water here is much better quality now.
I came from an area that has pristine water. So
From the Rocky Mountains, and I'm not going to disagree with you at all.
And you're not what?
Not going to disagree. But for the water we have to deal with in South Dakota, we've got very good water in Madison.
Well, it doesn't seem like any effort has really been made to convince the public that they should make an investment. Water is a resource that disappears. You know, it's a non-replenishing resource, and I think that we've got money for everything else in town. I certainly think one of the basic fundamentals to life, you should be pushed a little harder, and I would encourage the commission to make an effort to do that.
We're meeting all the drinking water standards.
Pardon?
We're meeting all the drinking water standards. We're providing you with a product that's healthy and clean. We watch it very closely. We have people that take it very seriously.
I wasn't talking about meeting standards. I was
Well,
talking
what
about
are you
quality
comparing
of
it to?
water, and
That's what
believe
I'm
me,
saying, too.
I understand water.
Okay.
I think with the finances that we have and with the costs that it would take, I think we're in the best position that we can be right now for the citizens of Madison. $27 million is what it would take to bring it directly to Madison. And you spread that over 7,000 people, that's a huge, huge bond and bill. So,
Are we ready for electric?
okay.
I think this is really good.
Thank you.
Right. Electric fund. Brad, jump in here anytime, all right?
Okay.
Again, revenue pink sheet electric fund. Going down to the operating revenues. Meter electric sales, we're budgeting $9.5 million. That is with this year no rate increase. There's no rate increase suggested on the electric rates. And I looked this afternoon, the last time that has happened was in 2005. So we haven't increased electric rates at all.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah.
Say that last part one more time again.
The last time we did not increase electric rates at all was in 2005.
Okay.
Okay? Under other financing sources, sale of electric capacity, that will go up a little bit this year. We're budgeting $384,000 in revenue there. That is our basin electric payment. They pay us monthly, that goes towards the generation plant out on the east side of town. And then in your reserves applied, we are only applying or suggesting that we apply $25,000 worth of reserves this year, and this is going to be towards the Center Street Lights project. We'll
That
talk
is
about
correct.
in the expenditure. So budgeting $10,767,000 worth of revenue in the electric fund. Moving to the expenditures. Under street lighting, improvement, $120,000 is a combination of LED lighting and development improvements. Under electric production, budgeting a total of $6.4 million in our purchase, power, and transmission. Do you want to elaborate on that at all, Brad?
Our actual energy purchases, we did have a rate decrease from Western Area Power Administration, which is something pretty unusual, but we had what was called a drought adder. In other words, when we got into the drought back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, they didn't have enough water in the system to cover what they were guaranteeing us for purchased power. So they had to go out in the open market and buy it. And Western Area Power Administration ran up a substantial bill. I forget the exact number, but it was really big. And they had to go out and create a loan, a bond, to pay for that energy and then pay that bond off over time with what they call a drought adder. In other words, they added to our rates 2 times. And last year they took a portion of it off, and this year they took another portion of it off. Last year, the portion that they took off was more than removed when Heartland had a rate increase. So Heartland's rate increase was more than what WAPA's rate decrease was. So last year we basically had a rate increase to us with the combination of those two. This year, Heartland has stayed firm, and they're not going to have a rate increase. Western Area Power Administration did decrease. However, we had an offsetting increase in our transmission due to the Southwest Power Pool. The problem with the Southwest Power Pool is that they don't give us a rate at the beginning of the year. They just bill us. And it's kind of hard to predict. This year, we're up 31% year over year on similar or even lesser demand. And so I have a concern that without some indication from SPP what they're going to bill us for transmission, we've upped the cost of the transmission, but in the end, it nets out being virtually zero. The WAPA decrease has been ate up by the Southwest Power Pool increase in transmission fees, which is leaving us at about a net zero change. And so that's why we're suggesting a net zero increase in rates, because all of the costs, when factored in, are about the same as what they were this year.
Thank you. As we go through the electric fund here, please reference again this sheet that has all of our improvements line items in there. So moving on down within electric production, we're looking at an improvement of $70,000 for a point guard upgrade. We're going to see if we can make that happen again this year. We'll try to make that happen this year. That's been in our budget a couple different times.
Third or fourth time is a charm, right?
Okay, that's okay.
And the issue is not with us. The issue is with the vendors and getting a product that they can replace our current product with. And there's multiple stations. They've got a trial one out right now that's in St. James, Minnesota. And if that one works, then they were going to apply it to the rest of us. So that was the plan. So hopefully this year.
We'll know what direction to go this year. Thank you. Under electric transmission and distribution, under professional services, you'll see $70,000. That is for numerous boring projects and just general services there. Under your cable wire line item, $187,000. Generally spend about $25,000 in primary and secondary wire. This year they'll be doing an Heritage High meter upgrade, Heritage High Apartments, approximately $5,000. Okay, that encompasses that 187. A couple lines down from there, you'll see tools and tool repair, $30,000 for a tracker locator. We can elaborate on that one too if you like.
Sure. The AP30 is the company was originally called About Phase, and then they've been since then purchased up and bought out by another company, and it's called the Phase Tracker. And it's a tool that we had rented from the city of Fort Pierre last year, and the foreman Mr. Seitz went through and checked with our linemen several of our switches. And what happens is when you're overhead, you can see everything. You can see all the lines, you can see where they are, you can see what line continues to be another line. When they go underground, it's pretty hard to do. And what has happened over the years is they've come off the poles in order, gone to the underground, and gotten out of order. And so when you look at a pole on the street, when you pull up on, you look at the street, C phase, B phase, A phase. You know right where you're at. When it goes underground, you walk up to a sectionalizing cabinet and you look at it and you say, okay, this should be A, B, C. Well, they're not. And they're any order of those three that you can imagine. So the problem is when you're trying to tie lines together, if you have a problem and you want to figure out where the fault is, you have to know what phase it's on because you have fuses on phases and indicators on phases. But it's pretty hard to do if the phases are not in the box right and if they're not labeled appropriately. So this is something that it's a tool that allows us to go in without de-energizing the circuit and rapidly find what phase each and every underground line is on, and you can label it so you know exactly what phase it is. And it'll be something that over time we will get our system put together right. We'll have it mapped on our maps, and we'll have it so that we know exactly what phase goes where. So if we have a fault, we can run out and immediately fix that without having to go through as much hoops trying to figure out, okay, where is that line, where does it run? And when you get to the sectionalizing cabinet, you know exactly which one it is to verify that it is dead, to bleed down, so you can work on it or make arrangements to alter where that power comes from. So it's something that's a fantastic tool. It uses a combination of GPS and cellular technology. And as like I say, we did some of it here in the past. It works fantastic, and this is something we'd like to purchase. We have inquired with Heartland to see if they want to do a joint purchase, and they were interested in it. At this time, I haven't gotten a commitment from them, so I'm putting the entire amount in the budget. If it comes true that Heartland wants to co-op on this, then we would reduce the amount that we would have to use in participation, but I put the full amount in the budget. So there is a possibility this could get reduced as far as the impact. And then the locator, our current locator, I think is something along the lines of 8 or 9 years old, and we're starting to have problems with the connections and getting parts for it, so it's just about time to look for a new one. And technology has advanced substantially since we've got our last one, and the new ones are much more capable of picking up our line versus everything else. We have gone to a joint trench in the underground, and what happens when you joint trench is that you have to tie your bonds together. Well, then when you go to locate, our ground bleeds off onto the phone and the cable and everything else. So it's hard to track it, and you need to have something that's better at tracking it. So these new ones are better at tracking what's yours and what isn't. So that's the reason.
The tracker and the locator aren't the same thing.
No, they're two separate items.
Good, I learned tonight.
Okay.
So of that $30,000, how much is where?
If I remember,
List them separately.
I think it's somewhere around. We originally had it priced out at $24,335, and I want to say it was $16,000 roughly for the phase tracker, and about $8,500 for the locator. From what I remember, $8,600 for the locator, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And there's a little bit extra there.
About those later,
Yeah,
but-
we had some other miscellaneous small things.
Thank you. Moving on then, still under electric transmission and distribution, our big line item here, improvements, $710,000. That 710 encompasses next year's upgrade improvement project, budgeted for $590,000. Central Street lighting project at $30,000, which we talked about $25,000 worth of reserve being applied to that one. An industrial incentive program for $60,000 and an opportunity fund for $30,000. All of those together equals that 710. Any comment on that, Mister?
No, I think we're good.
Good. Okay. Moving then into the electric admin portion, pointing out we'll put another $25,000 into the energy efficiency program for year 2018. Flip with me to the non-operating expense, where you'll see the bond principal and the bond interest. This is for our generation revenue refunding bonds that we have to pay through year 2025. Principal this year is $270,000. Interest is $97,980. Other finance uses. I have got a placeholder right now. If this fund changes, this is where it will likely probably change as we move into this week, next week into general fund, Parks and Rec, other entities that we normally transfer electric money out of, we will tweak this number in here. But we've got a placeholder in there right now. Capital outlay accumulation, we're going to be adding $157,000 into already established designated reserves for total electric expenditures of $10,566. So once again, going to your legal sheet here, which shows your revenue budgeted as compared to your expense budgeted. We're looking at about $200,000 of revenue over expenditures. And if you look in compared to last year, that's about the same as we budgeted last year. And then an $11 million budget, that's not as much as it sounds.
What is that, 1.8?
Sure. Comments, questions on electric fund?
How old is your digger truck?
How old is our digger truck? Do you remember? I'm thinking it's
Is it the late 90s or is it all?
no, it's like an
Both.
01, 02, I think.
Yeah.
The problem with our digger truck is there's so many poles we cannot even set. And as far as pulling poles, we work it beyond its limits. It's a lot better than what we had before, but it's just way, way undersized. And as far as our transformers, we've had to hire East River to come in, lift some of our mini subs. We've had to go out to Gale, ask them to bring their forklift down because we're not able to even lift it off the truck when they get here. It's just way undersized. And these are all pad mount transformers that we've had to pick up, so they're going to be around forever. You know, it's way undersized. It's one step above a toy. I mean, there's a lot of poles. We have a heck of a time. We have to sit there and just keep moving them back and forth because it's just underpowered. It should have been a diesel at the time we bought it. It wasn't, and it's just undersized.
So it's not just an age issue of, normal wear and tear to where we need to replace it. It's actually a capabilities issue along with, it's pretty much, near the end of its normal service life anyway, so.
Well, if it's a safety issue on lifting, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but, let's talk about Unit 79. How many hours do you have on that?
Oh, I wouldn't know the hours. I know the ages.
What
They
year
always.
is it?
Remember, that's the one that we were
We
going
were
to,
gonna-
it was scheduled to replace, and we swapped it out because
For
the
the
small
older
was
truck.
having issues. So it's now gonna be beyond what we would have had
Yeah.
for a schedule of replacement, based on,
Well, see, with us,
Problems.
having all this underground and stuff, I was wondering if, with that new utility truck that we got coming, I was just wondering if it was necessary to replace a bucket truck, or if we could get by an extra 3, 4, 5 years.
Well, we have moved it back 3 years.
At least, yeah, I think 20, I don't have my sheet right here in front of me.
Thinking we moved it back 3 years so far.
And it's going to be another, I want to say it was a 2019,
Yeah, I
In
think
my-
we're going to replace it in 2019.
so it'll be another 2 years. I mean, it's
2 years.
5 years, we pushed it back already, so
Yeah. And
when that comes.
yeah, when it comes to 2019, we may be able to move it back
Okay.
a year or two.
Thanks
The way
for
we've
keeping
been-
tabs on us.
Yeah. The way we manage, just so everybody knows, the way we manage the fleet is we look at trying to even out all of the investments every year so that we don't have a big spike when we had to, like, we just had a run of 3 trucks, high dollar trucks that have to be replaced. And the only way you can do that is to start putting in a pretty consistent investment pretty much every year. And the number has been about $70,000 is what it takes to keep us in vehicles and everything. And when you look through it, that doesn't replace everything. There are still some vehicles that fall off of the list because it's hard to replace everything in a regular cycle. So the idea is to make a consistent investment in our infrastructure as far as trucks and equipment, And then, on the years that you don't spend it, you put it into a reserve and pool that reserve until such time as you can afford to buy the vehicle. And so the plan's about 15 years out. It's pretty well balanced. There is going to have to be some escalation in the future for inflation, but it's laid out over about a 15-year period, and we look at trying to make it a consistent investment. Otherwise, you get hit with these big whoppers when you got to buy a $200,000 truck in 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
Sewer fund, how am I doing gentlemen, over there? I mean, are you keeping up with me?
Fantastic.
Doing okay? Okay, nice. All right, thank you. Sewer fund,
We're done.
operating revenue, budgeting $1.6 million for operating revenue this year. We are suggesting some increases here. Increasing the residential minimum, $2.50, so from $15 to $7.50. Increasing commercial minimum $5, so from $30 to $35. Again, increasing the extra meter charge $1, which is from $12.50 to $13.50. But leaving the unit rate, our volume, as is at the 4.01%, or the 4.01. We would expect that to generate an additional $130,000 worth of revenue.
With the new counts.
With the new counts. Thank you for that. Including the new meter counts. Transfers in, again, to the sewer fund, $658,000, which will all come from the second cent fund for the IIP projects that we'll talk about next. Total sewer revenue of $2,268,000. Move to expenditures. Under sewer collection, capital outlay, here's your other half of your pickup, your other $20,000 of your water sewer vehicle. Listed there under 5434. And I need to move, right, actually I brought my wrong sheet here. I do need to move down here in sewer disposal under improvements. You're going to see $1 million. You have to move a portion of that up into the sewer collection. It hit the wrong, not the wrong fund, but the wrong section. Okay, so I need to move that. So you'll see a little change. Your bottom line isn't going to change, but I need to move some of that expense from the disposal to the collection. Okay, but that $1 million is for.
You want the actual numbers, it's not, it's about 900,000.
Okay, yeah, it's just $100,000 less than what's here.
Correct.
Yep, yep. Okay, so the IIP, again, utility work for the Center Street and Garfield Avenue bridges is $15,000 out of the sewer fund. You'll remember we talked about the same $15,000 coming out of the water fund. Center Street project, $458,000 is sewer of that Center Street project. And they're also going to be doing this year a sewer lining project for $435,000. All of those add up to the $900,000. Questions? Anybody want to elaborate on any of those projects? Also to point out then, under sewer disposal, professional services, $10,000 for some nitrates testing. And I may ask Rick to help out with that. The mayor had some questions in my office the other day about that IIP cell testing. I think we're okay, right? The IIP cell reserves, we're going to increase here. Or that.
Yes, what's the number on that, I forget,
40,000 is what we're going to put into the reserves, which we agreed would cover the whole entire project when we're ready for it.
Should, yeah.
But this additional here in this professional services is for the nitrate testing that needs to happen.
With the nitrate testing that they're putting in the test wells.
Yes.
Well, the test wells were also
have been put in,
something-
And now there'll be some, basically lab testing
Yes.
of the nitrates.
Yeah, and then when we had discussed, a couple of years ago, and that, retesting the IP cells out there, and that, for overflow, and that we'd have to sandbag some, well, we'd have to put in the wells as well. Well, putting in the wells now will actually take care of both things at the same time.
Right, those would have been used for that
Yes.
IP cell
Yes,
test.
testing anyway.
Right.
So even though this is a requirement, you know, it's gonna take care of two birds with one stone.
Correct.
Yes.
Are we good? Thank you, Rick.
Mhm.
Questions answered?
We are,
Good?
yes.
Okay. Page 2 of your sewer expenditures, under your non-operating expense, are clean water SRF. This is our sewer bond that we have to pay through year 2029. Principal there is $233,000 with your bond interest of $106,000. And the capital outlay accumulation, we'd like to add $193,000 into our already established reserves for total sewer expenditures of $2.2 million. Back to this sheet, looking at your revenue over your expenditures, please. We are budgeting for $39,000 revenue over expense, which if you look at the history, that's consistent to years past. Questions in the sewer fund? Solid waste. Operating revenue for solid waste this year. Budgeting revenue of $281,000. And we are looking to make some changes or a slight increase in the monthly fee to the 65-gallon cart, raising that 50 cents. So it will go from $15.75 to $16.25 a month. All other carts and containers will remain as is. Expecting to generate $299,000 worth of revenue in the solid waste fund. Okay, moving to expenditures in the solid waste fund.
Is there a reason for increasing the cost of our garbage containers?
Based on some comparisons that were looked at in the department of what other entities are charging, and also the fact that we had budgeted initially, help me out here everybody, for a new garbage truck, a $300,000 garbage truck, that we ultimately took out of the budget because it was felt that we simply couldn't fund it at this time. We want to continue to watch our cash balances in the next year or so and see if we can't fund it, even if it's next year at this time, using reserve money. As we continue down through the expenditures here for your solid waste fund, we're looking to put $75,000 into the depreciation reserve to help fund that new truck, and that's a larger request than we do in normal years.
Well, I don't have a problem with getting a new vehicle, because we have to balance ours out on the farm too, when we want a new $750,000 tractor. But we're not going after the person that has the smallest can either.
We raised that one because that's where we have most of our business at.
That's
And that is
correct.
where,
Yeah.
but again, Roxy looked at some other neighboring entities, and we're actually low. And what City of Mitchell, City of Huron, Sioux Falls charges way more than we do.
All of the Sioux Falls.
All of Sioux Falls.
Vendors in Sioux Falls do.
Everything my son puts in his garbage can goes.
I'm sorry, was that Walt?
I said everything that my son puts in his goes. He lives in Sioux Falls. You know, I've had cardboard taken out of mine. I had oil on it. I didn't think that I should recycle it with the rest of the cardboard, so I put it in there. They took it out and told me that I could recycle it the other way. Well, I was just trying to be preemptive, you know, and not do something I wasn't supposed to.
And not seeing the cardboard, I would say that's probably the right thing to do. You know, but now I have to see the cardboard.
Well,
You know, but I agree with you, and that's one of our concerns is is that we have a lot more stuff still going, solid waste that could go to recycling.
Well, definitely. Did the trucks still go to Sioux Falls landfill?
No, we go to Brookings.
Brookings is
Yes.
cheaper now than Sioux Falls. Well, after Saturday, I might believe that. Because I had to take a load out there, 480 pounds, $22 to unload.
Zero.
Mhm.
400 and,
Yeah.
there's some factors we have to look at in that too. One is the recycling issue, how much we're taking down the street. You know, wouldn't have to necessarily. That was one of the reasons, other reasons we held off on the truck. Driving the big truck, you know, 2 or 3
Well,
times.
see,
If
don't
we
get me
didn't-
wrong, I have
No, I
nothing
understand.
against that. I mean,
Yeah.
equipment wears out, you have to replace equipment. But, you know, and I'm sure that you get bids from everybody on that. You just
Oh,
don't go
yeah.
in one company. I mean, the rear end, the business part of it, you have to go to one company for that. But like the front end, you could go several different companies on that.
And there's some other options we've been looking at too for how we want to pick up the cans. Do we
Sure.
want to go armed, do we want, which would maybe require less persons on the truck and have the other person available to do some other kinds of things for us. So there's some factors. That's one of the reasons I think we held off on the waste disposal
Was it
truck at this time.
definitely supposed to be more automated, that you can get rid of the poor guy that hangs onto the rear end of it?
The guy just was turning his
Standing
truck
out there in the
again.
winter with no
Actually, that's
heater.
true.
Uh-huh.
Then we get into a big issue, and I can go into this in great detail, but, you know, if we went to just the arm, then can we get it so that it goes down the alley? Because we have a lot of alleys here that it might not work.
You gotta get everybody
So
to
we're
place
looking
it
at-
where you want
yeah.
it, though, that's just it.
When we started this discussion several months ago, and every time we thought we had a good option, and Gary came up with a better one, or another suggestion, which was worth considering,
Yeah.
you know. So at this point, we decided we'll stay where we're at. We do know that the large truck has caused us some damage in the alleyways, you know, and in some other places. We're trying to drive it more prudently. And not to say our drivers are bad, don't say that, because I didn't mean that. But it's just that we have to be more cautious. The big truck does cause damage to some things in the roadways that we want to prevent. But right now, all things considered, staying with it one more year, building Western Reserve is probably our best move at this point. The other thing is, the product that what we're getting now for product in terms, well, this is a recycling issue, I should hold off on that, so carry
Okay.
on.
I was also going to
Yeah.
write, we
Yeah.
also don't charge a recycling fee.
Yeah,
Some
that
of
was
the-
actually like,
The things
Yeah.
that, the entities that Roxy pulled actually charge a recycling fee. We don't charge a recycling fee, but we do have to subsidize our recycling fund somewhat with some of our solid waste.
But we only take newspapers and cardboard now,
no,
or do we take aluminum cans
Oh, aluminum cans and plastic.
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 and plastic, yes?
Yes.
But we don't get rid of glass jars or anything?
We
like
do
that?
not do glass.
Yeah.
No. And with glass and that, yeah, brown glass, I think it's brown glass that nobody wants it, you know,
Well,
and
it's because the beer's all gone. They don't-
well, there's truth in that, you know. But you know, when you're working with glass and that, you know, it's difficult to find a place to get rid of it,
Oh, I know.
you know. And so it's best, you know, it's one that is made from stone and will go back to nature, you know. So
Well, it's not profitable,
no,
you know, and I understand that. And they, I try to get, you know, these big mineral tubs that cattle have mineral in them, and on the bottom of them, they have a recycling stamp.
yes,
I brought them here one time, and they wouldn't take them out to the main area. They wouldn't take them. Took them to Sioux Falls, they gave me $250 for them. Because I had like 600 of them. Now, they were gonna recycle them. Where were they gonna recycle them though?
well, and it may be the vendor they go through, you know, too. You know,
Sure.
I don't have the answer for that, but you know, you have to find a vendor in that will take the product that you've got.
Well, I'm glad I found one,
Good, yes, no, very good.
you know. Otherwise, they just would've got burned. And that's not good for the
Not
environment.
good for the atmosphere.
No.
I will admit, as being a commissioner, we have been very relaxed on recycling. We need to start enforcing that some more, harder towards the people, because there's a lot of stuff going into the garbage, solid waste that we're paying to dump it, where we could be getting the product sold otherwise. So we need to start educating the people. It's been a while since they've been educated, so.
Okay, back to solid waste if we can.
Please.
Transfers out of solid waste, $30,000, and again, that is to supplement the recycling program, recycling center. And then also maybe I talked about this already, I forgot where I left off, the $75,000 that we are requesting to put into the depreciation fund for solid waste. So solid waste, back to your cat sheet here. We are looking at expense over revenue of about $26,000. Which is different than in years past, but we are comfortable with our cash balance and where we're at right now to absorb that difference. Questions, comments, on solid waste before we move to recycling? Last one for the night. All right, recycling fund revenue, recyclable sales. Recyclable sales have been up. It makes us all smile. We're generating more revenue in our recyclable sales line item than we have in a really long time. We're going to increase our budgeted revenue, but we're not going to get too cocky about it. So we're going to say $85,000 is what we're going to increase our operating revenue to. As far as our recycling fees, recycling fee we charge actually to ourselves, to the city. We do a transfer every month, and then also a recycling fee that we charge to Bud's Cleanup, who is our other vendor in town here. I'm suggesting that we increase that recycling fee from $3.25 to a mere $3.35. You'll remember if you've been here long enough, once upon a time that fee was $2.50, and it didn't move for many, many years. And all of a sudden we adjusted it, and we had to go up to $3.25, and so it was a big difference from the $2.50 that we were charging ourselves and the other vendor to $3.25. We did not move that fee last year, so if we just move it a little bit this year, just to keep up.
What was the amount you proposed?
Right here,
To $3.35. Right now it's $3.20.
10 cents.
So it's not huge, but if we just go up with it a
Yeah.
little bit every year, we won't get into the position where it's at $2.50 and we need to go to $3.25. Looking to generate $133,000 in revenue in the recycling center. Expenditures. Most expenditure for the recycling center is the ECHO contract, and that will stay at $58,800 this year. Once again, we're asking to put $19,800 into the depreciation reserve, so we're looking at total expenditures of $154,000. Back to your sheet here. Expense then over revenue of $21,000. Looking at years past, that's kind of in the middle. We've gone anywhere from expense of $45,000 over revenue to expense of $13,000 over revenue. If we can maintain the recyclable sales, we should be even better there.
I would just like to add that these recyclable sales are higher than they have in the past because of the single stream. When single stream, everybody went single stream, our prices took a nosedive because your recyclables aren't worth much. And now they're realizing that there are a few of us that still sort, therefore our product is worth so much more because it's good, clean product.
So we're doing a little better by our product by being
Better quality.
Better quality.
Absolutely.
I probably like single stream almost as much as fog sealed roads. Just throwing that out there.
But on the downside, we can't take every single container. We just don't have the bins to sort it all out. So there's some odd numbered recycling that we can't take just because of that.
And aluminum, I don't know if you mentioned it, but plastic and aluminum and tin, like soup cans and those kind of things, as well as aluminum cans, hot cans. One item we were talking about really missed. And it has improved. So we're moving in the right direction in terms of the product that we prepare to go to our vendors. That just turned around this year really too.
Big time.
Yeah.
Well,
It was
last
up until
year,
this year, we were still
last
up in
year
the
it
air
turned
on
around,
a lot of
this
it.
year is,
So,
yeah.
so I think we're asset for it. I'm hopeful we can continue to move in the right direction on that as well as getting more product.
So what do we think? I'm very happy, if I can, I'm very happy with this, and the work that has gone into this, and
Yeah.
the position that we are in.
Can we just have the first reading next week?
Next week is gonna be
We
general
aren't finished
parks,
yet.
and I'm a little worried about parks again. Next week might be a little longer. But we've got next week Monday, and we also have September 4th, the Tuesday after Labor Day. The reading does not have to be till the 11th.
I'm not going to be here that day.
On the 4th,
What did you say about the meeting?
first reading is going to be on the 11th. So that means we maybe want to get as much hashed out next week as we possibly can, and we'll do the best we can.
I can call in, but
Okay?
What's next week, Jen? Do you have an idea?
I don't know yet. General parks, probably, depending on how.
You're not gonna do parks and streets on the same day.
Would you do that?
Probably, because they're so tied together, I mean, they're both governmental funds, so. We'll talk, I'm in all week, so we'll talk off and on all week. Thank you, if I can, thank you to everybody here, the commissioners are so helpful when we can do this departmental stuff together, and you guys are always willing to come in and ask questions and sit down and look at stuff. That just, to me, makes this go so much better, and we don't have to sit here and argue about who has to cut what, because we've done that within our own departments when we see that things aren't gonna work out.
I want to thank everybody else for coming too, also. Shows that
Yes,
some interest.
shows there's interest in it, yes.
And there could be some minor changes in here. You know, we've got a couple staff to hire, so if you've seen any yellow, that's because we're not really sure what staff is gonna be. Minor tweaking to do, but it's not going to change this a ton.
Come forward, I've been here.
We're doing fake news now?
Thank you.
More about what you want.
Thank you.
Thanks all,
Thanks, everyone.
have a good night.
I have a lot of